right, good evening, everybody. We're going to call to order the Monday, November 4th meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Casissa.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas. Here. Vice Mayor Ravazio.
Here.
Mayor Beckman.
Here, please join me in the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're going to have open time for public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items not on tonight's agenda. If you are with us in person tonight and would like to comment on anything not on our agenda, please come on up to the podium and make public comment. If you are with us via Zoom, please go ahead and raise your hand and we will bring you online here to speak. Not seeing anybody in person here that would like to speak. Do we have any hands up on Zoom or emailed public comments for open time?
No hands raised on Zoom and no emailed public comment for open time.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no public comment, we're going to close open time and move on to item 3, which is an interview for a potential youth commissioner for our Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Our applicant is Dylan Nofziger. So we will invite him to come on up to the podium here. So Dylan, we're going to invite you. I think you've got a sheet with kind of like the format there. We're going to invite you to go ahead and make a 1-minute opening statement. We'll ask you 4 questions at 2 minutes apiece, and then we'll also invite you to answer 1 yes or no question and then make an optional closing statement. And after that, the town council will deliberate and make an appointment. So with that, thanks for being here, and the floor is yours if you'd like to make a 1-minute opening statement.
I am Dylan Nofziger. I'm 16 years old and I ride my bike a lot. I'm a part of the Redwood High School mountain bike team. I know a lot about kind of the demographic of the area, know a lot about how the roads work. And I think I'll be a very good asset to the council.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're going to go through 4 questions at 2 minutes apiece now. Our first question, what motivated you to apply for the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee? What experience and expertise would you bring to BPAC, and what do you hope to accomplish by your participation? Please include whether you have any experience with bicycle or pedestrian circulation, transportation safety, or compliance with accessibility laws.
I think what motivated me to join is I think it'll be a great learning experience to see how like things are run and kind of the thing you don't normally see, and to help out with that I think would be pretty cool. I don't have very much experience with anything like this, so I'm going to be pretty green. And I hope to progress forward with this.
That's awesome. Thank you. Do you have any conflicts that may prevent you from making an unbiased decision concerning agenda items? Are you a member of any organizations that may influence your decisions?
I'm not a part of any organizations or anything. I'm pretty sure I'll be pretty unbiased.
Excellent. Thank you. Question 3, have you had an opportunity to work with the Department of Public Works on any projects, or do you have an understanding about how Public Works operates when it comes to public projects? And if you can include in your response whether you've attended any committee meetings in the past or reviewed any recent agendas or minutes, and what challenges you see BPAC facing in the next several years.
I have not been a part of any meetings or anything, but I've heard about them from my dad a little bit, kind of how things go. And I think like a problem that, the committee may face is something with e-bikes and kids and how fast they go. And I think it's a new problem, not really even really a problem, but it's a new thing. And I don't think that it's being handled correctly. So I think that can be something that can be improved on.
Sounds good. Thank you. Question 4 here. Please describe your strengths and weaknesses as they relate to being a committee member, and how would you describe your problem-solving style and strategies for dealing with difficult situations or decision-making in a public setting?
I think one of my strengths is that I can kind of give like a really new sort of take on the demographic of kids on e-bikes and kind of the way that I ride my bike around town, give some opinions on the stuff that I think. But I'm going to be very green. This is kind of my first time ever doing something like this, so I might be a little bit hesitant to kind of share my opinion freely.
Sounds good. Thank you. We're going to ask you a yes or no question. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee meets on the second Monday of odd months. Meetings begin at 6:30 p.m., run approximately 2 hours on average, and committee members are required to attend in person. In addition to regular meeting attendance, committee members are expected to read the agenda materials provided, which are typically posted the Friday prior to the meeting, and come prepared to discuss agenda items. Considering these expectations, do you feel you're able to commit to the term you're applying for on BPAC? Excellent. And with that, we will invite you to make a 1-minute closing statement if you'd like to.
Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to apply for this seat. And thank you guys for your commitment to the committee. And I'm really excited to work with committee and be the youth advisor.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we are going to bring this back to the council now. I guess we should take public comment first on the interview that we just heard. So we're going to open this interview up for public comment. If you're with us in person and would like to make public comment on the interview that we just heard, you're welcome to come up to the podium here and speak. If you're with us via Zoom and you'd like to make public comment, go ahead and raise your hand. And I know that we've also received email public comment in support of this application, and those public comments will be entered into the public record. I'm not seeing anybody in person wishing to speak. Do we have any hands up on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom. No additional public comment was received. The 3 that we did receive are already on the website and were shared with council. So they are available for the public to view if they wish to do so.
Perfect. Thank you. So seeing no oh yes, would you like to make public comment? Come on up.
I'm a little biased. I'm Dylan's mom, but I would just like to say, his dad's been involved with BPAC. So Dylan had the opportunity to have conversations with his father after those meetings. So he has been exposed to some of the issues. And the other thing about Dylan is that he's been riding his bike since he's 3, and he's ridden all of the trails around this area, extensively. So I think his knowledge, will be a big add for this committee.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, seeing no further public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring this item back to council for discussion. Who would like to start us off?
Cool. Can we do it?
Go for it. All right.
Let's do it.
Excellent.
This to work. Okay. So I'm really impressed with the actual experience that Dylan has. And I think it's really important to have a youth voice, especially right now, as we look at e-bikes. And so I'm with Charles. Let's do it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm all for it also. I think you're gonna bring a lot of value with just the knowledge and biking since you're 3. If you've been on all the trails, that's gonna help a lot. I will give you one piece of advice. Don't be afraid to speak up. Just it's kind of hard to do. I know when I first came up here, I was totally intimidated by this huge room and sitting here, but don't feel intimidated. Just if you're thinking about something, the most important thing to do is speak up, because if you're thinking about it, that's going to lead to something else and other people are going to chime in with it. So again, don't be afraid to speak up. I think you'll do great.
And I will fourth that I think you'll be an excellent addition to the BPAC. Not only do you have the experience on your bike and can give feedback about safety and accessibility and everything of all these trails that you ride, but you also gave quite short answers, which will be so greatly appreciated. You didn't sit there and go to the 2-minute limit. You just gave your answer. So I think you're a stellar applicant. So thank you.
And I agree with all of those comments. Excited to support you for BPAC. We love a service-oriented family. So thank you, Tom, as well for your service. And I would just echo Fred's comments. Yeah, you're here to learn, but we're also the reason we want youth, commissioners on these boards is because we want to learn from you. And you have a perspective that your fellow commissioners don't have. So don't be afraid to share your thoughts. That's why we brought you here. We're excited to hear what you have to say. So thank you very much. And with that, I will invite one of our council members to make a motion on this nomination.
I make a very stubborn tonight. I make a motion that the council, what do we appoint? Thank you. That the council appoint Dylan Nossiger to the BPAC.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Can we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Casissa?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ravazio?
Yes.
Mayor Beckman?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All righty. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Dylan. Right. Thank you, everybody. We will move on with our agenda here. We're going to move on to item 5, which is the consent calendar. These are items that are routine or have been previously discussed and do not require further discussion. Any member of the public or council may pull a consent calendar item for discussion. Would any council members like to pull a consent calendar item? All right, we'll open this up to the public. If any members of the public would like to pull an item from our consent calendar, please go ahead and come to the podium if you're with us in person, or raise your hand if you're with us via Zoom. Not seeing anyone wishing to pull a consent calendar item in person. Do we have any hands up on Zoom, Lorena?
No hands raised on Zoom and no emailed public comment for the consent calendar.
All right, so we will bring this item back to council for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to move the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ravazio,
Yes.
Mayor Beckman. Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. All right. You guys are free to go if you want, but we appreciate you hanging out with us either way. So just don't feel obligated. Right. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Aye.
So we're going to move on to our business items here. First business item for tonight is 7A, which is consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 39, 2024, approving the field supervisor classification. And this is the second hearing of an item that we first introduced on October 15th.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm going to give an RJ the night off, and I was going to take this one this is, as you mentioned, the second reading as the council's practice for items that affect the salary schedule, and this is also a new position. This is the second reading of an item that came before you on October 15th. It would essentially reinstate a field supervisor classification that was actually part of the town's salary schedule and was a job description with the town up until 2010. And then it was eliminated at that time. So it's essentially putting this position back into the town's organizational structure. We're also recommending that you approve the job description, which is an attachment to your staff report, and establish a salary range of between $38.93 to $47.32 per hour, which is equivalent to the equipment mechanic position within our Public Works Maintenance division. And this position really provides an opportunity for our maintenance team to be promoted into this job classification and gain some supervisory experience. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding this position and salary.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll take questions from council members. We'll start on this side. No questions, no questions. And I asked my questions last time. So we will open this up for public comment. If you're with us tonight, would like to make public comment in person on this item, please come on up to our podium here. If you're with us via Zoom and would like to make public comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand. Not seeing anyone in person wishing to make public comment. Do we have any hands up or emails in from folks out in the world?
No emails or hands raised from folks out in the world.
Excellent. Thank you. So we will close public comment and bring this item back to the council for discussion or a motion. Any thoughts? And if no one has anything to add to our discussion last time, would anyone like to make a motion?
I will move that we adopt resolution number 39/2024, approving the field supervisor classification, job description, and establishing a salary range of 38.93 to 47.32 per hour.
We have a second.
Second.
Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ravazio,
Yes.
Mayor Beckman.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 7B, which is discussion and direction to staff on a micro business pilot program for Menke Park. Turn it over to Amy.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Beckman and members of the council. So this item is a little bit different, but I wanted to bring this forward tonight to get your input on a new pilot program that we've been working on over the last year. And this is related to Menke Park and micro businesses. Next slide, please, Lorena. And so we were approached earlier this year with the concept of doing a coffee cart, food truck in Mankey Park, and really started building a program to see what this would look like. And so there's a lot of reasons that this is a good idea. First of all, Mankey Park is somewhat different than our other areas of town, such as Town Center or the Village. It's, as we know, a collection of small businesses. There are a lot of events that happen in the park area, but most of the time it's pretty quiet. And so this is one way where we can create vibrancy in this business district and also support some of the existing businesses there. So food trucks have traditionally been something that can create vibrancy and more foot traffic to be able to support businesses. It's also another concept that can help placemaking. So really creating activity and putting a different name to what's happening in the area. So there, I just put the goals that were listed in the staff report here on the slide for you. So the other component of this is to really test the feasibility or the viability of such a program. We don't have any regulations right now for food trucks or mobile vending of any kind. And so this is really an opportunity to test and see if this is something that we want to consider on a more permanent basis in Mankey Park or other areas of town. Next slide, please. And so the pilot that we put together is specific to Mankey Park, and it would be looking at temporarily occupying up to 4 spaces. It may not be all the spaces, but something next to the Piccolo gazebo and the pavilion. And so its proximity is close to electrical and is able to be accessed by people walking in the park area. So this would be, because we do not have permanent regulations, this is a little bit of a trial as far as the permit process as well. So what we envisioned is being able to permit this for 1 year for a pilot with an encroachment permit, and to charge the fees that were recently adopted for parklets, which are 50 cents per square foot per month. And then we would also require a business license, and then Marin County also would require an environmental health food license as well. And that permitting would be through the county. Next slide, please. The other thing I'll note about this is that it's a large risk to the business owner because it is a pilot. There's not a guarantee that it will continue. If there are issues that we can't address as a partnership, then it would not be able to continue. So it is a risk. And so what this is laying out is really the pathway to having a successful program based on outreach and input, making sure that we really looked at all the impacts that could take place, and making sure that there's feedback mechanisms to really get through any issues that may crop up. So this is just an aerial of Mankey Park showing the approximate location of where the food truck could go. This is, of course, very fluid. This is another area where I'm looking for feedback from you all on. But there is a desire to access the electrical outlet at the gazebo. We have been working on making upgrades to the electrical situation. And so there is going to be a modest improvement made to be able to provide some electrical there. And so we're hoping that will work for our applicant. And next slide, please. So these are the operational standards that have been put together to really look at some of those potential impacts that could occur. First of all, the hours of operation be 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. This is based on the applicant that we've been working with thus far, which would be more coffee, breakfast oriented. And then the signage would really be limited to the actual truck itself with a sandwich board sign as well. Lighting would not be allowed. Seating area would have to be off the parking areas. So we really don't want to restrict any more parking than we have to. And noise and energy sources. One thing that we've learned is that there's a sensitivity to noise. Menke Park areas like a little sound tunnel. So we want to avoid any kind of amplified music and gas powered generators. And then working with our director of Parks and Rec, looking at the operations during events. Those are really dependent on the event. So there would have to be an agreement that there is no operations during events unless it's otherwise allowed. And then next slide, please. So as far as the monitoring and evaluation, this is a big component of the pilot program because we want to see how things are going in action. And so there are some different things that we can do. I've been connecting with business owners and will continue to do so and see how people are feeling. We also want to put some kind of suggestion box or something near the park or in the park so we can gather input on this pilot program and maybe something beyond as well. And then we also have a software that we can use that monitors the active trips to and from the Menke Park area. So we can see if there's a change to the numbers that are coming in to and from. So that's something that we'll set up in advance so that we can see the change or the delta between when it's in activity and when it's not. Also thinking about the seasonality of what could occur as well. Next slide, please. And so I will say, I've done a fair amount of research and talking to the businesses in the Menke Park area and Corte Madera Square area, specifically focused on the restaurants, because one of the common things with food trucks is that it can be seen as a competitive effort to those brick and mortar restaurants. So it was really important that I could hear from them first. I wasn't able to reach all of them, but in general, the businesses in this whole area were really supportive. The one negative piece of feedback I heard was just the existing situation with parking. So, and I think that is something that's somewhat separate from this effort, but it was great to hear those comments. So we are working on a few things separately from this pilot program. But I'm hopeful that this would not exacerbate the parking situation and some of those problems. So that will be a different thing to look into. And, but overall, it's been very positive. And yeah, we'll continue to do outreach through this process and hear from those businesses. So at this point, really looking for any input or questions or comments on this program from you all, and hoping that we can launch this soon and be able to offer this opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amy. We'll start with questions from the council and we'll start to my left.
I have a few. So they can't put furniture in the parking spaces, but could they put tables and chairs on the grass or other locations? Would that have to be taken up every night, or could, based on the lease, allowed to stay there? Well, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends on the business owner and what they're comfortable with, because the equipment would be owned by the business owner. So there could be a way of securing it, or it could be removed when the operation's not in.
Okay, but that's something you would because this is a pilot program, we could have the flexibility to work on that and set those guidelines informally, and we wouldn't need to put it in the program itself defined, or do you think there's some degree of wording in that?
We can define it if you have an inclination of what you would like. I think it, not knowing what the application will bring, I think it's something we can work through with the applicant.
I guess I would just look to council if there's a public-private, like if there's a liability with setting that furniture into the space, like that would be the only thing I'd want to make sure that we're covered, but.
Yeah. I will say just on that, if you recall, we did during COVID, but we did actually have some some of the same spaces that were indicated on this slide about proximity to the gazebo and pavilion. Closed off some of those spaces with whatever it was. I forget exactly what we used, cones and whatnot. And we did have a table and chair program because we knew people could not eat in restaurants, they had to eat outside. So it's, some of this is actually an outgrowth of those experiences with COVID, the parklets and whatnot.
Okay.
And I think certainly there's ways that we would have to make sure that the markings and that would sort of traffic safety perspective, how that's important.
Great. Okay. Next question. You said you had the ability to live count trips. Is that only car trips or are you talking bike and ped trips as well into the park?
I believe that includes bike and ped, but I can get back to you.
Okay, because I think that's really valuable in that space. Is it? Right.
We're speaking about the same.
Placer AI.
Yeah, so it's based on cell phone data, so it could either or.
Okay. All
So
right.
you have to have a phone in your hand to be
Yes.
counted.
It's
Which-
anonymized, so.
Anonymized from the cell towers, is it? Or for GPS or?
Yeah, from a satellite, I think.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that came up was the fear of competition, right? So I guess when we're talking micro businesses, is this really an incubator concept for them to eventually expand into the brick and mortar? Or are we talking about long-term micro businesses? And can the town in some ways regulate competition as to only encourage and allow new types of business and not give them a cheaper competitive advantage to basically undermine already established businesses? It's just a question, right? Like, I don't know the answer, but is that something that, you know, both from a town we could do and then to the council, even if we could do it, is that something that really we want to do, right? Or is it that we want it to be robust and just, you know, there's two coffee stores downtown Larchburg, for example, right? Like, does it 5? So like, you know, what are we talking about? If it has the support, it has the support, right? But it was something that's been brought up as a concern. So I just wanted to know what our abilities to even address those kind of concerns would be as we move forward with it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And that was my concern as well. And I think this is why it's a pilot to really look into these issues. The concept that's proposed, the applicant that approached us is a coffee cart concept. And right now we don't have a coffee business within Mackey Park. So it's logical in that way. But even if there were, typically the brick and mortar businesses do see these as competition, but there have been studies to show that the increased traffic and vibrancy that the food trucks bring or coffee carts actually increase business for everyone. And that's a hard thing to message. So I think this will help us kind of truth test whether that's the case, even if there isn't a coffee shop in existence. But I think our goal at and the town staff is to not create more competition. It's really to invigorate what we already have. And so this could be an incubator type business that could help in a way where we'd be helping where they could grow capital to be able to do a brick and mortar, or it may just continue to be a standalone. So I think each business owner is kind of on their own quest. And so this is an opportunity that would help some if that's their goal, but it may not be a requirement. So through this pilot, if we see that this has worked well, we have the standards that we think are the right fit and strike the right balance, then I'm hopeful that a future work plan would include the ability to write regulations, really look into this more thoroughly to see what other jurisdictions are doing, what issues have come about from an economic development standpoint. How do the businesses feel? Are there other areas of town that may benefit from a food truck of some kind? And so that's something that a more robust regulatory effort would include. to really make sure we're not creating competition that the businesses are not welcome to, and being able to make the case that this would actually increase their business as well.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Charles. Rosa, any questions?
Thank you, Amy. So when the business owners were asked about their support of this concept, was the question posed to them about a specific type of business or just food trucks in general?
So we've been working on this for about a year, almost a year now. And at this point, I think our applicant has talked to people as well. So they are familiar that there is a request for a coffee cart in the mornings. And it's been really positive. I did in this last few weeks broach the idea of just micro business, potential food truck generally, and it's still been very supportive.
Okay, that's good. And this, the pilot is for only one, because it's only 4 parking spaces, right, that they could take up. So what is the idea of later, is there an idea later of expanding that to more than one micro business at a time?
That's a good question and is somewhat undetermined. I think it depends on, what we want to do as a community, what the feedback is, what you all would like to see. I think not having dipped our foot into this yet, one is something reasonable to do until we create permanent regulations. There are a lot of cities that do food truck events or permanent places where multiple food trucks can be. This is not that. So this would just be one food truck without public hookups in general to see if this is a feasible option. And if it is, perhaps we look and see, well, where do we want to go next? How many do we want to allow? Where and how? So I think that's something we can talk about in the future if this pilot program is successful.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I did have one, I noticed that in some food truck events, I mean, I can't imagine any business that's on, unless it was an event, none of the businesses that exist there now would have their own little outpost there because it's pretty tight. But I know that like in places like Larkspur Landing, some of the permanent businesses also during the food truck time have like a little setup out where they are. So I was just wondering if that, but I guess we're too early in to figure if that would be the case.
Yeah, I think it's too early. I think there's been so many different things, especially in light of the pandemic, of brick and mortar restaurants getting a cart or something to be more mobile. And there's the gamut out there, and some have been successful and some haven't been. So I think that is something we can explore as we go.
But is the general idea, kind of philosophically to have this be a inexpensive entry into business for micro businesses? Is there an idea to keep it that way?
I think it depends on the business. In this case, I see a great partnership because we also want more activity in Menke Park. And there is an absence of this type of business in Menke Park. So I am very curious just to be able to see what does this do to the community, the foot traffic, the activity that happens within the park. And I think the applicant that approaches, I think that's the goal as well, is to really partner with the businesses, really create community. And so I don't know the future goals of where she would like to go.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Pat?
Just a couple. So, to me, you brought up a really good point about the risk that's being taken on by the business. And I'm wondering if we can possibly mitigate that by giving her a little more than a year? Could we do 18 months or even 2 years? Because we know how long these things actually take to happen, or at least if the 1 year begins. Sorry, if the 1 year or 18 months even doesn't begin until the day she opens business, because we know Amy Hughes, who's here, I hope everybody realizes that the applicant is here today. That, you know, she's got a lot of work to do. And I just think 1 year seems really tight, that I'd love to see that extended. And then also in terms of her cost, if she only uses 2 parking spaces, which I understand was a request, she only pays the rent for those 2 spaces, correct? So she, depending on what it actually turns out to be, is what she would actually pay the rent on. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And as far as the time limit, we originally talked about 6 months. So it's now a year. I wouldn't want to go beyond that without being able to really understand and study the situation. So it'd be 1 year from permit approval. And there is always an option of doing another year while regulations are being developed. But I think that's the risk, is that we don't have permanent regulations. We've never done this. We don't know if it'll be successful. And so I'm really thankful that we have someone that's willing to take that risk with the town and really partner. And so I am willing to do as much as we can, but it's hard to alleviate that just underlying risk of the purchase of the food truck and the permitting required, which is partly the county and not just us.
Mm-hmm. So once she has all of her permits, the county and the town permit, that would then commence the pilot period.
Yeah, we can sequence it that way. That would be
Okay.
fine.
I just want to make sure that the clock's not ticking against her before she even gets started.
Absolutely. I also recognize that it's almost winter.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, she's gonna, it's a tough
yes.
time to be starting out.
Yes. So I think it would depend on the start date that works
Mhm.
for our applicant.
And then just one more question. When you talk about the downside, you know, we don't know how successful, we don't know how this will turn out because we haven't done it before. We know that these things basically work in other communities. I think actually the truck she's getting was being used in another nearby community. What's the biggest downside? Is it like it would become a nuisance that people would complain about? I mean, what is what's worst case scenario here?
I think you named it for me, not knowing, because we can do all the outreach we can do, but the moment OU starts, that's when you really hear from people on if there's an issue. And so the standards that we've created hopefully will alleviate any of the nuisance issues that may crop up. But you know, I think there's a lot of sensitivity of noise and other things in the Corte Madera Square area. And it's just the unknown,
Mhm.
because we are jumping into this without a formal regulatory process where that longer set of outreach can be done and workshops. And but I'm hopeful. I would not have brought this forward if I didn't think it could be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Thanks. A lot of my questions have been answered, but I have a few more for you. I haven't looked at an encroachment permit in a long time. Does that require insurance? And anything indemnifying, holding the town harmless?
That's a good question. I think it does. So this type of permit is a little bit of an odd fit for this use. But it is a low cost permit. I believe there would be insurance required.
Okay, I just
I
want
can
to make
get
sure.
back to you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just
specifically.
want-
Our
yeah, I just wanna
attorney
make sure that-
nodding. as
okay,
well.
thank you.
Yes.
And then also not encroach, and again, I just look at worst case. It's just the way I am, sorry. Is there a termination clause in there where we can terminate that encroachment permit at any time we want to? Or
So-
within 30 days notice or something along that line?
Yes, there would be conditions written in. So those standards that we talked about, there would be a part of that would provide some timeline of if there was an issue that could not be overcome, we'd have to cease the use.
Okay,
Yep. The permit can be revoked at any time is what I see in the staff report.
Correct.
okay, thanks. And then I know staff report and Charles touched upon this. Furniture is not permitted in the parking lot, correct? But then he came up with somebody could put it potentially in the grass area, right? But would that have to be ADA compliant if it's in the grass area? Or does it matter?
That's a good question, but the pathways near the gazebo, I believe, are ADA compliant.
Okay.
So the furniture would be okay there, but we can look into that further too.
Okay. And then up to 4 parking spaces, correct?
Yes, depending on the size of the truck, but it may only be 2.
Okay. And then one last question is, I know we're looking at 50 cents, which you tied it back to parklets, but if I can remember on the parklets, that was for the first year to give those businesses time to raise capital. And after that it goes up to $1.
Correct.
So you feel comfortable with the 50 cents? And I'll ask Amy if she feels comfortable with the 50 cents, because I think there's a state law that says we have to can't do anything less than market value or something along those lines. You know, that came up when we looked at parklets. I just want to make sure we're fine with the 50 cents.
I mean, we can't give away a gift of public funds, so we wouldn't allow use of public property for free, but there isn't a particular valuation of it. And since it's comparable to what we did for the parklets, I think it would pass muster.
All right, thanks.
Had some follow-up questions.
Okay, go ahead.
So the other question I had for you is, outside of this specific space in Minky Park, right? Like, is the long-term study just about Minky Park and micro businesses, or is it, for example, dog washing at Town Park, or haircut and nails, or something else, in a different location, right? I'm just saying, well, I mean, health code and everything else, is it only food businesses, or is it somebody has a little trailer and they want to sell honey out of it, at another public location that they think is worth testing out, right? Is the goal to really incentivize and create a micro business environment to then grow more brick and mortar retail establishments within, or is it, because so my sister-in-law had a trailer, they called it the Silver Bean in the Four Corners, and she operated that coffee house for 6 years, right? And it was very kitsch, and they photographed it, and it became like part of it, but it was on a separate lot. It wasn't like adjacent, right? And so I guess another question for this is, I think this was identified in the Parks and Rec as something when you reference, like, the general public wanting this, right? Was it that they wanted kind of fresh and exciting, experiences, just rotating, or is it like this long-term permanent establishment? And while we have a wonderful applicant, it's a very appropriate one for Minky Park, I fear that it's a lost opportunity for the town to think more broadly about the impacts and opportunities for micro businesses if we're only considering the first applicant that really has brought a lot of information to consider and an opportunity in of itself, right? So I guess I'm just asking, is it that we're really looking for Minky and really looking for food service micro businesses, or is it like that? And how will we gather data not related to food services if only the opportunity is related to coffee? So that's another question I should have out there. You may not have the answers now, but I think it's so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like, and then also the scale. So like, in New York, hot dog carts are a micro business, right?
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of informal micro businesses that roll around town all the time. So it's also like creating a more formal place for them. Is that something we want to study, right? Just to be fair to all things capable within this concept, right? And enabling ones that are ready to go that will, impact directly longer term goals that have been identified by the people, right? So if you don't know the answer though, like, I mean, then if you could help me find those answers.
Yeah, no, I can answer you on that one.
Okay.
So this is very narrow. This is just Mickey Park, just a food oriented truck cart of some kind or coffee. And so the larger picture I think is really important. And I think you hit on a lot of great points. One thing I'm hoping as part of our next work plan is to have the opportunity to do an economic development strategic plan. So we can really do outreach and understand what are the types of businesses that we want to explore? How do we support our existing businesses and really lay out a plan and a work plan associated with that? And if that's something that comes about, then there can be the time investment into, well, this is what our goal is and what we want to do. Where will it work best? What are the regulations to incentivize it, encourage it, and can be that would be the focal point of our plan. So I think it just depends on where we want to go and where you want to go as a council. And for right now, without having that strategic plan, having the staff capacity, this is a very narrow pilot program to understand if this type of business is something we want to continue to do, and do we want to invest the time into creating regulations for?
Right. And so the only other question is, if we identify 4 spots and the first applicant only takes 2, why not allow the other 2 to go to another applicant if one materializes during the pilot program to fill out that space? Why identify 4, but only know that you're going to do 2?
Yeah, I think to begin, 1 is reasonable. If your council would like to have the opportunity for 2, that's something we can explore. But I think the other thing is creating this narrower opportunity where there's a low risk of impact as well.
Reasonable for staff time for just observation and
Yep.
really digging into success metrics. Yeah. Okay. Something to consider. Thanks.
All right, and I've just got a couple questions here. One, just kind of looking at the proposal, it feels like we're sort of setting up this pilot program to foster and accommodate one specific micro business that we already have identified. Is that kind of the case?
Not necessarily. I think, I've been working with Amy for a while now, and, it's been a process to understand what the needs are. Do we have it? Can we do this? And so I wanted to create this opportunity very broadly to be able to entertain a different applicant if Amy decides that this isn't going to work for her. So it's a risk. It's a true business risk. So and this council item tonight, we really wanted to create transparency around the concept and just understand if you all had any concerns around this as well, which is another risk, another layer of risk. So it is an opportunity that's available, and it would be a first come, first serve process to see who would be interested.
That's great to hear. Thank you. That was my big picture question, and my small picture question is, why are we capping this at noon for the operating hours?
That is based on our current applicant, so that could change if she decides to not take the opportunity.
Okay, sounds good. Those are my only questions. Any other questions? And if not, we're going to open this up to public comment. So we will invite any members of the public who would like to make public comment on this item to come on up to our podium here. We'll do 3 minutes apiece. If you're with us via Zoom and you'd like to make public comment, go ahead and raise your hand and we will bring you online. I'm not seeing any in-person public comment. Do we have any hands up on Zoom, Lorena?
No hands raised on Zoom, and for email public comment, we don't have any new aside from the one that was submitted to council this morning and is available on the website for the public to view.
Excellent, thank you. So seeing no public comment, we're going to close public comment and start with council discussion. We'll begin with Pat.
So I'm going to try not to talk too long here, but I would like to introduce all of you to Amy Hughes if you don't know her. She came to me over a year ago wanting to do this idea, but was it 2 years? Time flies when you're having fun, right? But I know Amy from way back in 2012 when we first opened Cafe Verde, and she came up and volunteered to bake gluten-free treats and baked goods to get people to come and discover our new community cafe. She has also taught baking in our schools. I think she takes a nominal fee to do that, but she has been teaching the kids of town how to bake. I think she's got 180 people who have,
If I may, I think we're looking for direction on the pilot project.
okay, so
not on a
I will do
particular
that, but I would
applicant.
first like to catch up. I want the council to know the person we're dealing with here.
Well, the application will be posted and people will have an opportunity to apply. So,
Wait, that's the nature of a pilot program means that we can work with an applicant who has come in without
We-
opening it up for,
you
competition.
are offering a public benefit of using public property for a business. Now, we don't have to do a formal competitive process, but we do have to entertain and allow members of the public an opportunity to participate in a benefit that government is giving. So
no,
certainly.
I don't think that's the case. I did explore this with the city of San Francisco about the state laws in California regarding pilots. And when an innovative entrepreneur comes in with an idea and the council and the staff decides to support that person, we are not required to provide the normal bidding or.
As I stated, there
RFP
is not a formal
process.
bidding requirement, but it is the practice of this town to offer opportunities widely. So that isn't to say that we can award this on a first come, first served basis, but this is a benefit the town is offering.
Could you define what a pilot program is in terms of how it
Pilot
changes?
Program is whatever anybody wants to call something. What I can tell you is there are no formal competitive bidding laws that apply to this program. However, we are giving a public benefit away. So as this program is being discussed publicly and as the pilot program is being discussed as a pilot program, it is not being discussed as a particular person's ability. Now, that
So I
doesn't
will limit-
mean
I will
that-
limit my remarks then regarding our applicant. I will limit those remarks. But I do want to say a few things about Menke Park and the fact that for 34 years now, many of us have been working to bring just this kind of vitality, community interest, activity into the park. I don't know how many of you follow Nextdoor, but there's been some very vibrant discussions lately about how excited people are about the new butcher coming into town, about the new interest that has been taken in Menke Park with regard to the Chamber of Commerce, which has said that they would like to come in and look at how to create some innovative cooperation between the retailers, between the town and the retailers to create a more vibrant, safe public plaza there at Menke Park. We all know that the master plan revealed, I think food trucks was like the number one mentioned thing when people were asked, what could we do to improve the town in the way you'd like to see it improved? And it was food trucks, more vitality, more locally serving businesses. So I think that the potential of Menke Park here is huge. I think this is a great first step. I do think we should try to give her more time if possible, at least maybe have an opportunity for a renewal to automatically come to the council if there aren't problems that brought them here to begin with. And then the parking issue is real. And I think there are lots of opportunities there. Compared to town center, I think these parking spaces are more generous than they need to be, and they're just striped. There's also a whole stretch down near the new butcher at Zonda where there would need to be some gravel put off the road. And if there was, there could be an additional 4 to 5 parking spaces right down there. I don't know if we've walked it and looked at how to maximize the parking. And I did get a specific request. This is the number one thing I get phone calls and things about is why isn't there more there in Corte Madera's downtown? Why aren't we as cute and charming as Larkspur? And it really is the one area that I'm hoping we will be able to continue to focus on. I think the Chamber of Commerce might be able to lead an effort for the redevelopment, revitalization. Maybe that's the partnership between the town and the chamber. But people are really wanting to see something real happen here. And this is the first real thing in 34 years that's come along. So I'm assuming we're all going to support it. And when the time comes, I hope you can get to know a little bit more about the background of this exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. Any thoughts to share?
Yeah, just a couple. And I do have a question. If we give you direction tonight to move forward with this, will you have to come back to us with more of a formal packaged document? Or are we just going on what's in the staff report? We have like pilot program implementation and talks about the different elements.
Yeah, there would be no need for anything formal to come back. I think at the conclusion of the pilot program, it'd be appropriate to have a report out on how it went, what the good and the bad, and then whether or not there could be a discussion about regulations being developed as part of a work plan. So perhaps it's part of a work plan discussion as well.
Okay, thanks. From my perspective, I'm okay with moving forward with this. It sounds like there's risk on both sides, both from a town perspective and both from a business standpoint. And it seems like I give you a lot of credit, Amy, because I think you've come up with a great middle ground. And by doing a pilot program for the 1 year, we'll know if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. If it works, then yeah, maybe we can expand it to other parts of town, not just Meekie Park, Town Park, where the tennis courts are eventually in that area. And I trust in you again. I look at the risk part with the insurance, ADA and not that stuff that you and your department will be on top of that stuff just to make sure that it's minimizing any liability back to the town. But from my perspective, I think we should move forward with this because I think it's a great idea. So thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Rosa.
Not getting along with this mic very well tonight. I guess it doesn't want me to say anything. What I struggle with is, as they say, there is no legal definition of a pilot program or, any agreed upon. But the importance, the reason you would have a pilot program is so that it gives you some actionable information back. And I'm struggling with the idea that a single business would give us enough information back to, take action on. And what I mean by that is that, businesses do well based on a lot of factors. There are factors with the management, there's factors with product, there's, factors with a million different things, capitalization, whatever. And so to make a decision, or I'm just struggling with what information do we get back from having one business with one management team, whereas, one could be successful and another might not be successful. So I don't know what, I'm just not sure if this could, I'm not sure what we would get out of only having one business. What will that tell us for the next year? So I think if anything, to be flexible, to maybe open it up to more than one business, even in that first year, so we can have some kind of comparison. And about the length of time, if a business is, you know, a year might be too much if they see right away that it's not working. So what the question is if, let's say this is a pilot program and the, you know, one or two of the applicants say, you know, I'm not making a profit. Do we just try to find another person to fill that in, or is the program over?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think in this situation, we would want to find another business to be able to operate so we can continue to see what the impact is and if it's feasible and if it's worth the investment to create permanent regulations. So, and you have a great point as far as what would we learn? What would we gain? And I think, you know, from a policy perspective, it's always valuable to have a use that's already in operation. So you can understand more about what the regulatory nature should be. So there are certainly ways where we can get the foot traffic data and survey results and questioning businesses and more the qualitative factors. But just writing public policy is so squishy sometimes. It's having that actual understanding of how something operates is so valuable. And then, of course, we always learn from other jurisdictions on what has worked, what hasn't. But I think it has to be really catered to the community, to the you know, the neighborhood, the business district that you're working within. So having a pilot program is always going to add value to the policy process that would follow.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, so I think having food and coffee and stuff in Minky Park is something that this town has wanted for a long time, right? We want it more activated. It is getting more activated with the music and the events and everything like that. I am also excited about the idea of micro businesses, and in a world where capital is very expensive right now and it's hard to do brick and mortar, and you know, you want to try to grow the, like I've talked about it before, I like the idea of incubator spaces. So I'm with Rosa in that I wish we could explore even more in the beginning to see who wants to propose other great things like this first applicant that's trying to move it forward, right? It's not that it's tied to one applicant or one thing. It's tied to the end, but like at the same time, it's understanding staffing. And so, you know, but there is a series of permits, and the permits have values, and they have, you know, that's the reason we put cost is to absorb and be able to do it as a standard business care, you know, at the same time. So you're associating what our standard permitting things with staff time, counter time, right? Like, because you have to report out, right? So it is, maybe if there's other applicants during the pilot program, it comes back to identify in midstream that you need more, you know, there's more opportunities and more people, and we can expand it out if we as a group feel comfortable about it, right? That's the only thing that I would like to see expand upon this initial step. And then I feel comfortable about it because it isn't so fine-tuned as to not open it up to real, like, you know, the idea of benefit is also that we open up spaces to actually benefit the community more, make, like, those parking spots are not as valuable as a micro business as bringing people in and providing more happiness in the town and experience, right? So like, in my mind, that's really what we're exploring and opening up and trying to do. It's not that we're trying to give away parking spots or whatever, right? So it's, you know, but irrespective of that, it doesn't matter who's doing it. It's what they're doing and why they're doing it that I think in the long term we'll have to determine what's best for the town, right? The other thing about micro businesses, and the reason I brought up my sister-in-law's coffee business, is when it's a leased space, right? When you build a business, you build a clientele, they'll get to know the applicant at a coffee shop, right? Because they'll be there every day making coffee, or someone, if it isn't the direct owner, it's somebody else, but it'll build a social dynamic. And that's the actual value of the company. If they ever get tired of it and want to sell it or something, it becomes a lot different when it's on a leased public property versus, and that's why I think of them as incubators is because if you build a certain amount of cultural and brand identity, having it in a brick and mortar is transferable equity that you can basically sell as a business, right? And so that's why I don't want to just see it forever a parking space that has a coffee cart on it. I want to see it as a vibrant coffee shop that matriculated into the broader environment, right? And still activated Minky, right? And so you know, how we enable that, how we gear that, and what policies are set in place of how long we will allow someone in that and for what reason, right? Like, I think we'll have more data later about how to best do that for the whole town. Yeah, those are but that being said, if we can approve this to get it going, right, with, and these other kind of, you know, staff has feedback on that and can continue to modify the pilot. And it's not really a pilot program we're approving, it's a micro business strategy, right?
Oh, it's a pilot program.
But it's a micro business strategy, and the goal is to report out on the success rate of micro business opportunities on what property, right? So that's the end goal for me. It's not just enabling a certain use in Minky Park to meet that goal only.
Okay, so I think that that's a good goal, and actually agree that micro businesses are a wonderful thing to explore. But I'd like to just narrow this down a little bit to say that this test is, can this micro business concept bring vitality to Menke Park? That we're not trying to figure out whether or not micro businesses are a great idea for all of Corte Madera. That's my concern regarding the pilot program, that if this ends up being written up in the IJ as Corte Madera is welcoming micro businesses, our poor staff could be overwhelmed with proposals. So that's why the pilot program enables the town to do something that it is not ready to do on a wide public basis yet. We're doing the pilot program to find out if we want to enable these things. And that's why I thought it was okay to talk about this particular applicant. I'm sorry I was not briefed that I was not allowed to talk about the applicant. But I do think this is about Menke Park and downtown Corte Madera and bringing vitality there, not the other idea, which is a great idea. I think having micro businesses throughout Corte Madera could be a great idea. That's not this idea for right now.
No, I understand. And I know where it's coming from, and I know it's broadly supported. It's just, well, but informally, it already has in other locations that are nuisance, non-permitted, like informal micro businesses rolling around and basically just loitering in other parts of town for profit. That
The ice cream trucks, you mean?
whatever it is, ice cream trucks, like what there's, you know, mobile dog washing, whatever it is, there are mobile like micro businesses all over the place. There's arcades on buses that go for birthday parties, right? Like you could rent a space in the park so they could do a birthday, like, you know, there is a lot of opportunity where they're informally conducting business mobily, that you could create a condition in which they could integrate into larger town infrastructure. And that's the broader policy that is being addressed, even though specifically it's to one place and specific to a request from the town's people, right? It is a informal use scenario that is happening across the board. And in other areas where it's more economically depressed, micro businesses are huge. And during COVID, Oakland, basically every street corner had informal businesses doing any type of business. It went to basically like a street market approach, right? And so, you know, yeah, there is an opportunity to do that, but it did get out of control. There was no regulation. The regulation is actually the way to control it and conduct proper business. And without having an understanding of it in a policy across the board, right, the ability to address it becomes even more complex, right? So I guess that's where, from a community development standpoint, yes, like the long term is to do that. But if tomorrow someone goes, wow, that's a great idea, they all talked about it in town, and now I'm shut out and I can't talk to Pat about my new business idea that's going to enliven Minky Park, right? Like, I also want to avoid doing that to people because like even in Minky Park, is it only one thing?
Well, but this applicant has waited 2 years and she has paved the way for this.
There's no
So
applicant if there's no program. So it's someone
Right.
who's interested in creating a program, right? There's no application for a micro business because the micro business program doesn't exist until we say it
while the
does.
pilot is going on, once the pilot is completed, we can decide which way we want to go. I just think you're getting a little ahead of yourself is all.
That's okay. Well, let's just refocus on the pilot program before us, even if we may have different ideas on where on where we hope this will lead. But sounds like there's going to be plenty of opportunity in the future for us.
It's a question of how enthusiastic can we be about this?
Yeah. And Fred.
I just have one comment and just one thought. We have one micro business from 6 in the morning till noontime, correct? This pilot program allows for one business, micro business, 6 to noontime, right?
Correct.
What would happen if we allowed for a second one, and you could be a better judge of the time, which was from 4 at night till 7 at night? They're taking the same number of parking spaces because that business would be gone, correct? Or is a plan to leave carts and stuff on the premises? Because if we did that, we're using the same number of spaces for 2 micro businesses.
That's a good question. I think it would be a lot to ask our applicants to remove the truck every day. So I think if you wanted to entertain a second opportunity, that it would need to just be additional parking spaces. I don't think it would work to occupy the same place and have them switch off and on every day.
Okay. All right,
But
thanks.
that would be doubling this effort. So my recommendation is just to stick with one for now, but a year will go by very fast.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll share my thoughts. I'm very supportive of this. I think it dovetails really nicely with both what we've been hearing from the community for a long time, and I think what we all personally wish we, would have happened, what we would have loved to see in Menke Park years ago. So it's very exciting. I think it also dovetails really nicely with what we heard in the Parks and Rec master planning survey from the community, which was we want stuff like food trucks. And that could be whether it's because they want exciting rotation of choices or whether it's because they just want more choices, period. Like it doesn't really matter. They want food trucks. This is a great way to start to bring in that type of thing and kind of dip our toe into those waters. So I'm excited about it. The only thing that gave me a little bit pause in terms of how this was sort of presented, maybe developed and presented. So this would just be my direction, was it did feel a little bit to me, as I said earlier, like maybe we developed this with one specific micro business in mind. And I always just feel uncomfortable as with my good government hat on of like, hey, we're going to create the space for this specific business or the specific person who we've already chosen. I think we all have great faith in the applicant who's already expressed interest, but I would also love to see if it's possible to have an opportunity for multiple businesses. Like I think somebody mentioned, if she applies and is selected and only needs 2 parking spaces, if we could have an additional micro business next to her that also only needs 2, or 2 additional that each only need 1, and we feel we can manage that, I would love to see us do that. So I think, I'm very much pro vitality, pro economic development, pro like giving you, Amy, and our team here. I want to give you guys the latitude that you need to really push this as far as you're comfortable with in terms of getting the most vitality out of it and getting the most useful information out of it. So, I personally would like to see the council regulate this very lightly, outside of saying, we don't want nuisances and we don't want established businesses being run out of town. But outside of that, I would say you guys go for it. And I would say whatever benefit you think you can get out of this would be great. So, and I think to that end, right, that's why I asked about the hours. Like I would love to see us have this thing able to run like normal business hours, like morning to evening or whatever. And then if an applicant is selected who chooses to only run their business until noon, that's fine. That's their business decision. But that's kind of the way I see it. But big picture, I'm highly supportive of this pilot program. So thank you. Sure.
So while all that sounds exciting, I think we need to keep in mind that there are people in town who are afraid of us junking up. That was the words that was used, junking up our beautiful Menke Park. So my hesitation about saying, oh, come one, come all, is that suddenly the pilot program, which was intended to monitor one charming looking coffee cart in Menke Park, is suddenly going to end up evaluating the other business that came in and the other people who, whatever else happens. And I just don't think that's fair. I think the pilot program, I don't think we should interfere with the pilot program by bringing in big elements that could affect how the town would judge it, how the community would judge it. I think it's a sensitivity issue, and it's the reason why things like this didn't happen 20 years ago when they were first brought up, was because there was an outcry that it was going to be ugly or is going to be flea markety or whatever. So I think we need to move cautiously and say yes to this applicant, absolutely, but not decide, oh, let's just throw everything in and see where it goes.
But so I understand what you're saying, but like in the parklet condition where we had a pilot program for the parklets, it was basically rudimentary safety and just people doing what it took to be able to conduct business in the parklets for basically what was a pilot project, right? Now we have a dedicated ordinance that says it has to have a permit. It has to look this certain way, like maybe in the future, if it's decided that whatever businesses want to rent in Menke Park, they have to meet a certain kind of design aesthetic to basically for their carts to have a longer term lease, right? Like, so that's why, once again, you don't want it to go beyond a year. I haven't seen the cart. I don't know what cart's going in there. I don't know if it's compatible or not. It's a land use decision we're being asked to basically vet. Right now, you may know more detail, but I do not. And I don't want to, because I want to make a broader decision about policies for the town. And so the holistic way to look at it is to say, after the pilot program, to identify that, because it is a fear for me too, which we brought up in other instances and addressed. That's part of what the longer staffing plan for building out how they would be integrated here or any other area in town that needs vitalization, right? But even more so why, like, one will have a different impact than if two. And then if you have two and you're making design considerations in the future or policy decisions, it may be different. And so the rest of the council has also expressed a desire to understand that more holistically. Right.
So friends, we have had a robust discussion about this. I'm going to try and land the plane now. So I think what I hear is we are all broadly supportive of the program as outlined. This is direction, so we don't need to agree. There doesn't need to be consensus on every little detail. I think you've heard a range of sort of different philosophies and approaches. But do you feel like you've got kind of the direction you need to take this forward?
Absolutely. Thank you all for your input.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amy. So with that, we're going to conclude our business items. We'll move on to item 8 on our agenda, which is council reports, and we'll start with the town manager.
Okay, just one that I'm sure somebody else up here will elaborate on, but the volunteer dinner is on Friday, so I just wanted to mention that. And the town will have some town staff as well attending this year, so I'm excited about that. I think Amy's coming and Becca, myself. And potentially others as well. So looking forward to that event with all our great volunteers, and hopefully we get that invite out to our most recent youth member who was just appointed today.
Good idea.
Other than that, I don't have much to report. Obviously, there's election day tomorrow. We have been trying to put out good information out to our community residents who may not be as savvy to get the information off the websites and internets and all the other information that's been sent out. So we did post something on today. I want to thank Lorena for doing another post on our website over the weekend. Should be, we're all sort of standing watch, and I'm sure everyone's a little bit anxious, but looking forward to maybe Wednesday and beyond.
You're here. Awesome. Thank you, Adam. We'll do council reports. We'll start with Fred.
Thanks. On 10/16, I attended age-friendly Corte Madera. We actually met here and Adam was there, myself. Adam kind of gave the age-friendly committee an update on the ad hoc committee and just insight on how that process is going to work. On 10/23, we had a intergenerational center ad hoc committee meeting, pretty much Pat, myself, Adam, and then Vespa, our broker. She gave us a list of every single thing available in Corte Madera. Kind of went through those to dwindle them down to something that's kind of more realistic and may potentially work for us. On 10/24, I attended a Marin Transit special board meeting. We decided to go ahead and move forward with 1075 East San Francisco Boulevard for a bus maintenance yard, electrification yard. There's a little bit of pushback by the city of San Rafael. So we decided to amend our resolution, and we're looking at actually coming up with a plan to work with the city of San Rafael on certain aspects of that maintenance yard. And then on 10/24, I also attended the chamber event, which Pat did the ribbon cutting for 1 year anniversary. Good job. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you guys for doing that. Charles.
I didn't do anything official, but I did go to the community center last week and donated a Power Red donation for the blood drive that happened in the community center.
Very nice.
All right.
Thank you, Rosa.
I was also thanked for my service at MCMC and had a really good presentation about the Builders Association and their impacts and involvement with local building officials and community development officials. So and definitely they provided opportunities to basically help work with the different towns and mention a few. So
Thank you, Rosa.
At the same MCCMC event, the builders and also Marin County Housing was a really, really great presentation. I think they really went hand in hand very well. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Pat.
You guys are reminding me that I was at a lot of places that I wasn't even going to report about, so now I don't have to. My big thing this month was going to the Cal Cities annual conference, and I went in with a specific idea in mind to find best practices in the state for even how small towns like ours can be more creative in getting big things done using partnerships. There is a whole new, I guess, field of public-private partnerships and how to finance those and how to enable small towns to do a lot more than our staff has the capability to do by sort of assigning or working with other people to do those things. So I learned a lot, even things like public swimming pools and entertainment venues, intergenerational centers and the like are being put together all over the state by cities being either with not-for-profits or even with private businesses to help make things happen for their community. So that was super interesting. And I came back with 1,000 ideas for Adam, who always reminds me that there is such a thing as too many good ideas. So I take that into heart. And yeah, Adam already mentioned the volunteer dinner. This is one of the most delicious dinners of the year. It is catered and she does the amazing roasted turkey with all of the fixings. So I hope that you will be there. Dogtoberfest was such a success. The people brought their dogs in costumes. It was adorable. The town band played and took away all the attention from the dogs because the town band is now excellent. They have a new conductor called a man named Nick Burdick, who has been doing an amazing job with them. They will be performing December 19th at the community center. So hopefully we'll get a great turnout for them because they really deserve it. They've been working super hard. So that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you. And I was out of town for a week and then sick for a week. So I have very little to report other than on October 16th, I was also at Cal Cities for just a day. And I got to participate in a panel discussion with Amy and her colleague. And we shared with a room full of a lot of municipal lawyers our experience with hate speech and Zoom bombing in Corte Madera. And Amy got to share what I thought was her very elegant legal approach to how to deal with that. So it was a well-received presentation, and Amy and her colleague did a fantastic job. So thank you guys for doing that. And thank you, Pat, for taking over our representation at the conference after I had to go. And that is all.
Not to mention the ribbon cutting at Diva,
That's
which
right.
it was much better for me than it would have been for you. It was all women.
I love that place, though.
It's a great store. Oh, sorry. Oh, Fred was there.
All right. So with that, any comments on our draft agenda for the next meeting? And if not, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.